Okay, so welcome back to this channel. So we are building a complete e-commerce site in Next.js 13, and from this video we will start implementing our authentication. Okay, so in this video I will first of all register my user and save that user in the database, and also we have to handle the user registration from the front end and back end in this video. Okay, so first of all let's handle our back end. So I have to create my model first of all, then the route, and then we will handle that on the front end. Okay, so I simply go back to my VS Code, and then here I have to first of all create my model. So I go in the backend, in the models, I get a new file that is called user.js. So first of all, that is going to be const user schema, and I use here new mongoose dot schema. Okay, and then let me correct that is import mongoose from mongoose, and then in here I have to define all my fields. So first of all, the name of the user. Okay, so type is going to be string, of course, and then we have here our required field. So definitely the username is required, so type here true, and type here my message that please enter your name. So if the user doesn't pass the name, we will throw this error. And then in the same way we have our email and password. So I type here email and then the password. Okay, so that is going to be please enter your email, and then I add one more field here that is called unique to true, because I cannot have more than one user with the same email address. So I type here unique true, that will make sure that we have only one user with this email in the database. Okay, so it will make that user unique. And then we have here please enter your password. Okay, and then I type here one more, that is min length. So the minimum length of the password is going to be, let's say, 6. Okay, so your password must be longer than 6 characters. Okay, and then I define here select is equal to false. So whenever we will get our user, it will make sure that we will don't get any password in the response. Okay, so it will select it to false. Okay, and then after that, after the password, we have the avatar of the user, the profile picture. In that I have first of all the public ID, the ID of that image, that is going to be string. Remember that this is Cloudinary ID. Okay, and then we have to save the URL, so that is going to be URL, and that is also going to be string. Okay, so these are not required at start. Okay, we will handle that later in our upcoming videos. So in the avatar we will have our public ID and then the URL of that image, and then we have the role of the user. So type is going to be string, and then we have here the default value. So default is going to be the user. So by default every user is going to be a user, has user role, and we can also change that to the admin if you want, but we will handle that later. At the end we have here created add. So when this user is created, so created add, I type here type, that is going to be date, and then default that is going to be date dot now, and then I simply save it from here. Now we have to export this model. So I simply type here export default mongoose dot models. We will check that if user model already exists, then we will use that. Otherwise we will use here mongoose dot model to model our schema. In that I will pass here the name of the model, that is user, and then the schema, which is going to be user schema. Okay, so it will create that for us. Simply save it, and now our model is ready. Okay, so now let's create our controller. So I go to the controllers, type here auth controllers.js. So here first of all I import my user model from let's say dot slash models, then slash the user model. Okay, then I define here my function. So export const register user. Okay, that is going to be an async function. In that we have our request and the response, and then I type here name. Okay, then the email, and then the password. We will get all these values from the request.body. Okay, we will pass our data in the body of the request, and then we have to create the user. So a similar type here const user is going to be await user dot create, and that I will simply type the name, the email, and then the password. Okay, now the user is created. Now we have to simply send the response. So I type here res dot status, that is going to be 200 or 201 because user is created. So dot json, in that I will pass here, let's pass in here the user. Okay, so now the user is created. Simply save it. Our controller function is ready, and now we have to go into the pages in the API, create a new folder here that is called auth. In the auth, I get a new file that is called register.js. That is going to be /api/auth/register. And now in here I will simply copy this from here just to save some time. So you have to import from the auth controller, and I will import here the register user. Okay, and then I will have to use here handler.post, that is going to be register user. So this is going to our backend API. Okay, so this is our backend. I hope that you understand. Now we have to create our front end form and register the user. Okay, so for that I simply close this from here, and also this. I think so everything is fine here. One more thing we have to do is we also have to encrypt its password before saving in the database. Remember that here we haven't typed any code to encrypt the password because we cannot save the plain password in the database. We have to hash that, and for the hash I will use a library that is called bcrypt. Okay, so we will use bcrypt that will encrypt the password. So let me install that first of all. That is going to be npm i bcrypt.js. Okay, and I just save. Let's install this package, and let me, so I will simply type here import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Okay, and then we have to simply type here user schema dot pre. Okay, so before creating the user, we will use here dot pre. In that we have to first of all type in here the method that is going to be save. So before saving the user, we have to encrypt the password. Okay, so I simply type here async function, that is going to be next, and then in here I will simply first of all type, I will check that if this dot is modified. Okay, and then I will pass in here the password. Okay, and I will use here not in the if statement, and then I will use here next. So here remember that this is the current user that is being created. So we will check that if that user is if that user passwords is not modified, this means that we don't have to hash the password. We will simply move on and use here next middleware. Otherwise we have to hash the password. So I type here this dot password is going to be await. Okay, I will use here bcrypt dot hash, which is the function that I will simply pass in here first of all the string that I want to hash, and then the salt value. So the string is definitely going to be this dot password, and then the salt value is going to be 10, which is also the default value. You can increase that if you want, but 10 is enough. Okay, so this will hash the password. Again we will simply use here pre, in which we will type that before saving the user, we will check that if the user password is not modified, then we will simply move on. Otherwise we have to hash the password. So I will set this dot password. Remember that this is the current user is going to be, we will hash the password and save that. Okay, simply save this one, and now we are done. So now let's go to our front end and register our user. So I close this from here, and I go to the context. Okay, in the context create a new file that is going to be auth context.js. So I will simply go to the card context, copy all the code from here just to save some time, paste that, and I remove every function from here. Okay, and that is going to be auth context. So auth context, and this is going to be auth provider. Okay, so I use that here and also here, and sorry, that is going to be auth context. Okay, and everything is fine, I think so. We don't need here use effect. Okay, so here first of all we need the user. So const user is going to be set user, and by default the user is going to be null, so I set here null. Okay, then we also have here the error. So error, if we have any error, so set the error, and by default it is also going to be null. Okay, and now we need here router also. So now let's define our first function, that is register user. So const register user, and I use here async, and in that I will simply pass in here the name, the email, and then the password that you have to pass on the backend. Okay, so I will simply use here try catch. Okay, so try catch. So if there is any error, then I will simply set the error. Remember that we have here set error, so I will use here set error, and that I will pass in here the error value. So that is going to be error dot response dot data dot message. Okay, so we will set the error here if there is any, otherwise we have to create the user. So I use here axios, so I will data, that is going to be await axios dot post, sorry not get, that is post, and the post, first of all you have to type the URL. So that is going to be first of all the domain, so I type here process dot env dot api underscore URL. Okay, so we will add our URL here, and then we have here slash api slash auth slash register, which is our backend endpoint. And now we have passed in here the endpoint. Now we have to also pass in here the data for the body. So that is going to be first of all name, then the email, and then the password. Okay, so now it will send the request with this data, and we will simply check that if data dot user, okay, then we will simply router dot push. We have to push to login, but right now we don't have any login route, so I will push to slash. Okay, so that is use router. Simply save it, and now we will simply and go here. We have here register user function. Okay, and then we will set here the user, then the error, and then the set user, I think so also. Okay, simply save it, and now we are using these values. Okay, so this is our auth context. I go to my app in the global provider, I will add that here. Okay, so I will simply type here the auth context. Okay, and then I will add here closing tag of auth context. Simply save this one. Okay, I will remove this from here. I will add that here, save it. So we will add our auth context. Oops, we have to type here auth provider, I think so. So I will remove this auth context. Okay, simply save it from here, that is auth provider. And now we also have to install a package that is called React Toastify. So React Toastify is a package that helps us to display the toast messages on our UI. Okay, so I will install here npm I react dash toastify. Okay, I will install that, and then we have to also add that here. So I will import the toast container from React Toastify, and then we have to simply add that in our provider, and then we can use that and display our messages. Okay, so let's also add that. So I add here empty tags. So in here I have to first of all add here toast container. Okay, in that I have to just provide in here the position, so where I want to display the error messages. So the position is going to be, you can select that from here, but I will use here bottom right. You can change that if you want, simply save it. So we also have added the toast container. So close this from here. We also have created our auth context. Now we have to create our component. So I go to the components, create a new folder here with the name auth. In that I create a new file that is called register.jsx. Okay, now let's go back to our by now first branch, which is the components. So I go to the source, in the components, in the auth I will have my register component. So I go there and I copy that from here. Okay, and I go back and put that here. First of all I have to add the link from next/link. Okay, so I will use here first of all href, then I will import the link from next/link. And also I use here use client, because this is the client side component. We have to use here different hooks. So use client, and then we have to also import from here the use state, and then the use context, and then we also have to import from here the use effect. Okay, so now let's also import here the auth context. So import actually here auth context, and also the toast, because we also have to display the error message if we have any. So import the toast from React Toastify. Okay, so now let's type here our code. First of all, we get our error register user. Okay, then also we have to import here use context. In the use context, I pass in here the auth context. Okay, so now we also have to create here the state variables. So name, then set name, that is going to be use state. Okay, then we have here name, then we have here email, so set email, and then we have here the password. So password and set password. Okay, let's get our submit handler also. So const submit handler, that is going to be this. I type here my e, which is the event, then e dot prevent default. So now let's go here in the form and use here on submit. I will use my submit handler. Okay, now let's add all these values and on change here. So after this I type here value, that is going to be name. Okay, and then on change I will use here e, then set name, that is going to be e dot target dot value. Okay, so it will set the name. If we change that, in the same way we have our email, so that is going to be email, and then set email. In the same way we have here the password, so that is going to be set password, and this is also going to be password. Save it. All right, and now let's go here. Now we have to simply pass all the data in the registered user. So I simply type in here registered user, and in that we have to pass in the name, email, and the password. So name, email, and then the password. Okay, and also we have to show the error if we have any. So I will use here use effect. Okay, and then in here I will simply check that if there is any error, then we will simply toast dot error. Okay, so in the toast we have different methods like toast dot success and toast dot info, toast dot error. So here we have the error, so I will display here my error message, and in the dependency I type here the error. And also we have to clear the error after displaying that to the user. Okay, and that is register user. Okay, we also have to clear the errors, and for that I simply go to my context auth context. Let's define here our clear errors. I simply have to type here const clear errors. This is going to be pretty simple. We just have to set error to the null. Okay, so after displaying it to the user, we will set the set error to the null. So we will use here clear errors. Simply copy this from here, and also we will import that here, and then we will call that after displaying the error. Simply save it, and now let's type here npm run dev, and also we have to actually go to our app new folder, that is going to be register. Okay, in that I create my page.jsx file. So page.jsx, and I copy this from here, so that is going to be register. Okay, I remove this card from here, so that is going to be register page. Simply save it, and now if I go back to here, close this from here, go to slash register. Okay, so use register only works in the client components. Add use client directory to top of the file. I have to add in here use client. Okay, and Here I also use the use client because we have used here toast container, so we have to use here use client. Simply save it. Now if I go back and reload this page, so I simply go back and the auth context we have here, the auth context dot provider. Simply save it, and now if I go back, you can see that here we have our registered user with our fields. Okay, so if I type here like my name, then I type here gulam1@gmail.com, password is going to be 123456, and if I type here register, okay, so you can see that we are moved to the login page. So this means our user is created successfully. And if I go to my MongoDB, you can see that here our user is saved successfully in the byitnow.users. We have gulam1@gmail.com, role is user, and you can see that here our password is encrypted successfully here. Okay, so this means that our user is saved successfully. Okay, so one more thing, if I go back, we have added here the code for the error, but we haven't done error handling right now. We haven't created our error middleware that will handle the errors. So in my next video I will create my login, okay, and I will display the user in the header, and then in the next video I will manage my error handling, and then we will test this error. Okay, so right now our user is creating and it is saving in the database. So I hope that you understand. If you have any question, you can post that in the comment section. I will definitely reply there, and you can also find the source code of this video in the description of this video. Now in my next video I will handle my login, and also I will display the user in the header. Then we will handle our error handling. Okay, so I will see you in the next lecture.